Welcome to the Narrate podcast, where we aim to tell God's story with our lives. We'll be continuing to post the Sunday message each week, but we want to dive a little deeper and offer some content to supplement your life with God, and that's where our Beyond Sunday series comes in. Join Adam and Narrate staff as they provide thoughtful discussions, ideas, and interviews that go beyond the message you'll hear on Sunday.
So I thought what we would do, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for the
invite.
invite.
I thought we would, let's just get in a little to the, your story and Phat Tracks and why you're doing this. And we'll shoot for having a 30-minute episode, so we can give 15 or 20 minutes or however much you want to your guys' story and why. You're both business people in other realms, so why'd you get into Phat Tracks? And then we'll transition it into what you're excited about with the scratch. So Let me just say I'm sitting here with Chase and Chris, and not only are they business owners in other ways, but they also run Phat Track Trail Company. So tell me the story. How did you already have too much to do. Why did you start this?
Want me to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I bought some property, 15 years ago, and we decided it was a good spot to build a trail, so we built the trail, and went
that
up
was
there.
Your first build?
Yeah, Monkey Crow. Monkey Crow was the first kind of
you
trail
had
we
your
built.
pump track too.
Yeah, that was the very first thing we did.
And-
Pump track out of my house in Jeff City, and then
Okay.
I purchased this property up Tucker Gulch, and we had that, and Chase and Keenan and I went up there and just started scratching a trail in by hand. The very top of it was figured, let's just go from the top of the property to the bottom of the property, and so we scratched it in one fall, I think it was, and then kind of let it sit for the winter, and then we came back up, and then that winter we bought a machine, a mini excavator, and Chase was looking for stuff to do, and
Chris bought a machine to the plumbing company, and it was sitting up there.
Yeah,
and I was getting divorced, so I lived.
So you just
I lived up
you were
at
looking
his
for somewhere to go. Yeah,
Well, I was going through a divorce still,
Yeah.
so I got to sit on his machine on his property where there was nobody, and we'd hang out, we'd meet up after work.
Yeah.
And just any free time there, and then I just had a lot of time to go hang out in the woods, and so it was a huge blessing because it was 20 acres. It's beautiful property. You've ridden through it on the.
Oh man,
yeah. So
the flume is one of my
and
favorite
we just
rides.
had fun laying it out.
Yeah.
We'd always ridden bikes and had dug trails before, but just never. It was fun doing the layout. We found some, points of interest we wanted to hit with the descent we were doing, and connected the dots and turned out really good. We finished it in the fall. Had invited a bunch of our friends up just to kind of check it out, and got a lot of good feedback, and so we just kind of looked at each other like, maybe we should do this for a living. This is pretty fun. It turned out good. People like it. We're both in construction, so it was kind of a natural stepping stone from going to doing what we were doing and it was a job we could also a business we could start and let it just kind of organically grow.
Sure.
We didn't have to put all of our eggs in that basket. It was either sink or swim. It was we both were doing other things, and we could just kind of let it do its thing. And it has over the last, we started in 2017, so last 7-8 years here, it's just literally snowballed on itself and gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year.
What would have been your first contract then?
The first real one was at the directional trails.
You guys.
Well, that was that was your first trail,
Yeah.
the directional trail on Ascension.
That would have been the first, contracted, not just side stuff, free stuff.
Yeah, that
Public
was-
land kind of a deal.
It was through the city with you guys. I think it
Yeah,
was
you
your
guys paid for it.
for
and
trails
Brad.
funding,
And
and
that was kind of
city contract was
Totally.
city hired us, Brad, and
And it
Last
also
time.
got us kicked out of town. And we didn't come back and
It
work
was-
in town for.
got a lot of us kicked out of town. That was the last time we declared the trail before we did the event. We just learned, but I think we're back. So
it was a fun experience too. That one was interesting because it was very limited footprint. We could, there were certain spots of it that was steeper than we would have liked, but again, we worked with the Bicycle Guild for the layout. You guys obviously financed it, and then City of Helena, Brad, gave us the thumbs up. That's who the contract was through. Chase did a bunch of the machine building, and then
and that
still
cool
a lot of
wood
raking.
feature. Because I remember you were pumped.
That was kind of the second year after the trail was in. We kept saying that area was so rocky and exposed, and it was a spot that we needed. It'd be nice to be able to carry your speed through there. So we were just like, man, a big wooden berm would be really cool right here. And
was that Brian?
So Brian, was that city money? Was that 30?
I think
or was it you guys again?
That paid for the berm? I can't remember.
I think it might have been the bicycle guild.
Okay, maybe the bicycle. Yeah, so we should all. Anyways, yeah. So I was like, the city provided the material and hauled it all up there too, which was a godsend. Because that would have been horrible. And then Brian, he drew up the plan and
super cool. Plan of how it was going to go together. And
he used to frame wooden roller coasters in Tennessee or something like that. Probably just screwed it all up. But anyways, I'm like, Brian, will you lead this? Because he's smarter than me and weird stuff like that too, and like
cool thing
and more gung ho. And so we went up there and sawed it all off, and just like
we've obviously ridden a lot of wooden berms, so we kind of had an idea how they would work as far as getting at the curve, with dimensional lumber, and it turned out really good. And, it was. Super cool project. That's how the berm came about. And that was like the next year after, and it works awesome. Well, obviously, if anybody's ridden it,
it's like 10 feet longer than it should have been because we over-guessed wood, and I didn't want to look too bad in front of the city, so we had to extend
it.
Yeah, totally, right?
Yeah, ride's good. Ride's really good.
We'd want a couple of those on Aftershock. Like there's when you're coming down, it'll never happen, but those really exposed corners, that'd be so fun.
I mean, Rock Solid Trail Company, if you look at their stuff on Instagram out of Bentonville, they do a lot of metal stuff that's anchored to rock and like portable welders on site. So it's like really it's stuff that you can do. It's just we're Montana and 10 years behind the times, and look at where we are now from getting kicked out of town 7 years, 6 years ago, and now
let's jump into that, because you guys have now been instrumental from my perspective. It seems like you've been really instrumental in like bringing town back together and bringing the different stakeholders, and you took them all to a training, right? And wasn't there a training down there?
Yeah, we went. Yeah, so we go every year. Well, not every year. Every other year, roughly.
We missed COVID, and then the year after. It kind of depends on fundage because it's expensive, and we run pretty tight as a trail building company.
But the PTBA is a Professional Trail Builders Association, so it's a conference they put on every year. They usually bounce East Coast, West Coast, kind of alternate it.
It's not always.
We went. I don't know, maybe. I can't remember the first year we went down, but it was in West Virginia. Flew ourselves out there. Got to meet a lot of really, really cool trail builders. The trail building community is a pretty tight-knit community. There's not a lot of us out there. Very welcoming. Just a great experience. Came out of there with a whole lot of knowledge. I think the other thing it kind of did for us was that gave us confirmation what we were actually putting on the ground was correct. You always kind of think, I know what I'm doing, but I think going to that also showed us some of the things we were doing maybe could be improved, but a lot of it was like, we actually got this dialed. And then every year I feel like we learn more stuff, that's the center for progressive trail building, and sustainable trail building, where you don't have to do a lot of maintenance, water's not ruining things. So it's been very educational. And then last year, was it last year?
Yeah.
We went down to Georgia, and we invited, the city came down, City Helena came down, Tyler, Prickly Pear came down, the Forest Service came down. So we all kind of rendezvoused down there.
Wow.
It was good, I think, to expose them to that national conference as well.
Have you seen it changing the philosophy of builds locally?
No, quite yet. I mean, we're still. I think
Tyler.
Did we get to be able to come back to town and work? Yeah, and I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise too. At the time you're like, man, we're not going to get to do anything when. There was some controversy in town, and there was some groups that weren't getting along, and so. But anyways, we ended up going out of town to work because that's where the only jobs that were available.
Right.
And again, I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I think we got to work with MTB Missoula, Sealy Rocks, which is a nonprofit out of Sealy Lake.
Okay.
Did those projects in Placid. got to work with MTB Missoula, which taught us a lot of different techniques too. So yeah, just made us better trail builders. So we went out of town, got more experience, got more knowledge, and then came back, and I feel like we're better trail builders for sure now than we were when we started. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, totally.
So yeah, let's just name the trails you built in town now then, because the directionals, which I always get the like sanctioned and unsanctioned names confused in my head. So what are those called?
the directional. Flat or
Big Dorothy's is one, and
Cruise
then Cruise Control's the other one. Yeah.
Big Dorothy's the giant one, and the big drops. Okay, and then Cruise Control. And then what are the other? Because you did the Fords, didn't you?
The bike specific stuff in the bottom of Davis.
Oh, that's right.
Lower Davis and Upper Davis over the last 3 or 4 years, kind of hit and miss with all that. So the Lower Davis stuff, Upper Davis stuff. We've done a lot of small stuff, just reroutes. Prickly Pear hired us to do a reroute on Edie McClure. On that one a couple years ago on the land acquisition. We did a little reroute
which you had
for
like
them.
a postage stamp to work with. But salvaged the trailhead.
Yeah,
we did the new climb up to the Ridge Trail 3 years ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's
right
like a downhill going uphill.
You went from dreading that part of the ride to like, oh, this isn't bad.
Totally.
Yeah. That was with the Bicycle Guild. They funded that one, got that approved with the Forest Service.
You did some of the big berms in the new Barking Dog too, didn't you?
The lower Barking Dog? We did lower Barking Dog.
We did the
on
lower
the steep stuff, and then
the
it
banked
was
out stuff, and
then it was steeper, or then it was Conservation Corps and Prickly Pear did the single track.
So once you kind of come around that big left.
Yeah.
We did like the lower 1,500 feet roughly.
Yeah,
totally.
So, yeah, that's really fun.
But that was fun too. That
I
was
just hope
Prickly Pear and
Purring
Forest
Kitten
Service.
doesn't stick as the name.
Is-
Whatever. So you guys just built that one in the scratch gravels.
Yeah.
Which is, a lot of people will listen to this and have never even ridden it yet because it like snowed the day you finished.
Totally.
But
Totally.
what surprised you about that trail, and what excites you about that trail?
The rocks.
The rocks were
And
definitely definitely the surprise. We knew there was rocks there, but we didn't realize
It's the scratch gravels, and it's so easy, accessible to get a machine anywhere. It's not like you have to get, but just all the rocks just made it super tough building, and just we had to anchor the machine off to trees in a few areas, and so just didn't expect it to be as tough as it's going to be as accessible.
I thought we'd see rocks, but it would be mostly decomposed granite. No, it was opposite. It was mostly rocks and a little bit of decomposed granite. Totally. But it turned out, at the end of the day, I think it turned out phenomenal because of the rocks.
Yeah.
So we were able to leave a lot of the rocks, and it adds a lot to the trail. It doesn't. Sections of it feel like a machine built, but there's a lot of it feels more like a hand dug trail.
If someone likes Aftershock, they're gonna love that trail.
Yeah.
Among other things, but it's such an interesting. Whereas Aftershock's really only fun one direction. I think this one is going to be fun both directions.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. We've gotten to ride it.
I like it both.
We've ridden it a couple times. 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Both directions. Definitely rides different both directions for sure.
For sure.
One of them, if you go from head to Echo, definitely has more of a downhill feel to it. Descending feel. But rides awesome both ways, I think. And
but if you come from Echo, like that first, I don't know, what is it? Quarter mile is super fun.
It's super fun and floating down through there, and then it gets in the rocks.
And then you're like, I'm climbing.
Yeah.
Totally. At least it's low-key climbing, though.
Yeah, totally. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Is that a 1.5 mile trail?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was like a month. I mean, you guys worked your butts off.
Totally. We got the contract, basically. I mean, the day that we met with BLM, right in the green light to go, can we have the green light? And then they're just like, okay. And so we had machines out 2 days later.
Yeah.
And I think we were a month on the ground. We worked through one snowstorm, and then by the last 2 weeks, we were peeling the first 2 inches of frozen layer, just are we leaving the machine? How's it's going to look? Because there was one spot kicked us off of and we had to do this go around the rock section, which was the only true single track hand dug section, which was 20 feet.
Yeah.
something like that
Big
on
rock,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
where we started that day.
Yep.
So yeah, once
Yeah.
again we hit some rocks that we couldn't pass, and so yeah, so that also kind of goes into that earlier question of the exciting part is just the trails that are out there, and like, right, the scratch gravels has kind of always been the, like, I don't know, stepchild of the trail system that nobody
Yeah.
wants to go to, and for the people that love it, there's awesome stuff and it's great, but just the potential and literally the easiest face to dig across, that seemed like the easiest face to dig across was we were at the top of Mount Dean Stone in Missoula, like 45 minutes off of paved path, self-rescue, steep, and just like huge tree stumps all the way that, and that was, I would say, a simpler build than
what
even just
Scratchy's
what,
was.
I mean, it was harder in the fact that it took longer because, it was in Missoula and everything
Just the
compared to right
logistics,
under
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Sure.
logistics compared to this. But as far as, yeah, like I said, there's definitely times where it pushed me and like, this is scary. And also we need to get radios, like, and kind of up our safety factor, because it's
Yeah.
like
So if
tied
you
off.
tumble down in your machine.
Well, yeah, totally. Like we were tired off to rocks in certain areas and using come-alongs to keep us while building, trying to move boulders, and you can't go back and forward, and so you get into these situations where you're like, the machine's here, and we have to get out safely. No
I'd say
matter
that's
what.
one of the things we picked up from Mount Dean Stone too, was we like to try and have at least 2 machines and just more people on the ground. Chase spent a lot of time on Mount Dean Stone by himself, and just for a safety factor. We kind of just decided at that point, it's like, all right, let's always try and get 2 machines up there, work from both directions, and so
I
far
see.
we've been able to get 2 machines on almost everything we've done since then.
Yeah, since the first
That's
couple
just
years.
Nice working with somebody else,
Right. No,
It's
that
community.
totally makes sense.
It kind of takes it back into that, like, everybody's in it, we're doing something, compared to just like all in your head.
And we saw Chase almost go crazy.
Yeah, well, I called Adam. Well, I think there's a
Season
text.
2, right?
Well, yeah, once again, which I was divorced by then, so I wasn't fully stable, living in the back seat of a truck at the top of a mountain, 45 minutes
From anything.
from anybody, and just like kind of just in your own world, and you're pumping 14-hour days to make budget, because like it was a tight budget on that one, because that was when we were out of town traveling and hungry and didn't have any name, so
Sure.
anything was, yes, we'll be there,
Yeah,
like it
makes
wasn't
sense.
like, hey, do we have this in us right now,
Yeah.
which I guess we're still not like that by any means, but we'll ask that question more.
Well, so, I mean, do you think that all scratch? I mean, was that a uniquely hard part of scratch gravel, or do you think that's all going to be that rocky and
I
brutal?
think it's all going to be
That
that
was
way.
the easy part,
Yeah,
man.
I think it's going to be like that or worse in some spots.
Yeah.
We've been trying to get a GPS route for the phase 2.
Yeah.
We went out the other day and got 1 track. I think we're going to try and get out again and get another track so we can give it to the Bicycle Guild, so they can give it to the BLM. But
Yeah, well, let's talk
it's-
about that. What's the thought on the next phase?
right now we're trying to get an ascent to the Scratch Gravel Peak, I think is what that
Is that what
official
that is?
peak
Okay.
is, that's called. So
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I think also so basically a loop around that to it and then down off of it. So the route to it right now, where you've been up there, is just not ideal.
Yeah.
It's just more of a old 2-track ATV, that whole area. Most of those trails that were adopted into that system were dirt bike and ATV
That makes
trails.
sense.
It was open to ATV. It was like a free-for-all out
Because
there.
that lasts like, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile. Like, can Dan Barry ride that? There's no way.
Yeah.
Do you think he can? It is so steep.
It's steep, yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
no, totally.
Again, it's not sustainable. I think going forward in the scratch gravels, if we can, I think if we can build all the trails sustainable and to a good grade, I think it'd just be add to the experience out there. I think that's a lot of the reason a lot of people didn't like to go out there. I think there was, for one, there's no real trail system. You just kind of got to know your way around.
Right.
And then the trails that were there were just old, you know, which a lot of the ones in Helena were the same way. You know, any of the really steep stuff in Helena is usually an old Jeep trail or an old ATV dirt bike trail. So it just got adopted into the system, and Scratchy's is like that.
So do we have to abandon like those 14 switchbacks down when you say?
I don't know that a lot of it's going to get abandoned, other than maybe lack of use when there is a better route, maybe.
Okay.
But there hasn't been any talk of necessarily abandoning or decommissioning any of it right now.
And it's going to the west. The ascent trail is actually going to be on, I guess, that's the west side. Did I say that?
North.
The one that we walked up, northwest side, you know. Yeah, so it's actually going to go up around that and then come up from that side, the west side, and then I guess we'll just call the east side where all the switchbacks are. It's only going to be the top third that is new, that'll connect with all those squigglies, but the top third will be new, and that, you know.
Yeah, because they're again coming off that peak. It's so steep.
And then there'll be a trail that goes all the way down to the bottom. That's proposed on, or that's part of the proposed plan. To that contour trail that takes you over to the squiggly climb.
Yeah.
You know, so basically it's proposed to drop onto that.
Because that's the Norris, right? And then if you drop down that, you're down into the Norris trailhead, aren't you?
No, that Norris, it can take you to the Norris, but it also takes you to what's that golf course?
Oh, down
that's
off
right.
I can't remember the name of that. There's a
either.
different
it's
trail
on the east side.
Should have brought it
You
back.
you access it from Green Meadow, right?
Norris's Green Meadow, you act from John G. Mine, is that, or Franklin Mine? Which one?
Yeah, it's one of those roads.
Actually, no, I drive down that road every day.
Well, you kind of make the point. I mean, the scratch gravels is the epitome of you kind of have to know what you're doing, or have someone show you where stuff is to ride it. Which we are working. Jody's working on that map, which I don't know to what extent it's still going to be intimidating because of a map without signage. But who wants to spend money on signage because then they'll just get stolen?
Well, right. And then the trail forks, like Seavers already has that new trail.
Oh,
I mean, he had that new trail on as soon as the GPS was proposed. He had a proposal hidden
That's
trail.
right. Yeah, we gotta. Someone's got to name that thing so that we know what to call
I think
it.
the signage stuff will come too. You know, you look at the Copper City over by Three Forks. You know, that's all BLM, and they did some cool signs over there. They did have some people stealing them.
Yeah,
they made set the signs too cool, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you guys could get some signage up over the years, you know, as we start putting more trails in, as that starts happening, I would say a map needs to happen and then some signage, because that is one of the drawbacks, especially anybody out of town.
Right.
You know, the locals kind of figure it out, but if you were from out of town and you went out there, it's a lot of just scratching your head. And Trail Forks does help. You know, that's a pretty big app. A lot of out-of-towners use. But
I remember when we first moved here and I was just trail running. I was a part of a grant where, with Amy Teagard, some other people got to go to Baltimore to some conference thing, and that was my comment was, we need more signage. And all these locals were looking at me like, you're crazy. At the time, I was like at a ski hill, there should be a sign at the top of Mount Helena that has the trails, but you just forget once you have your orientation, you forget what it's like to not have it.
Totally.
And I think sometimes probably people like it that way too much. What do you think this next phase? What do you think the price point of it is? Like, what do we have to raise?
Well, I think there's an endless budget right there, because we have 30 miles of trails and it's like a couple months turnaround, and so Chris and I are just trying to get our brains wrapped around everything, just making runs right now to get as much GPS so that it's at least always there, and as soon as we get money. And so I think that would be I
would say our goal this year would be at least 2 to 3 miles GPSed and give it to BLM and have them maybe get the green light, and then just see where the money is at that point. And then just pick off sections of it. You know, there's obviously good intersections we can pick and be like, all right, we're going to do this section, you know, with this money. And then, you know, hopefully there's some fundraising going on throughout the year too, you know, so even, you know, after Ales is over and that money's decided, you know, then we can maybe, another fundraiser. I know the Bicycle Guild's doing a movie premiere.
Oh, sweet. That's right. I forgot about that.
I think that's going to be April 13th, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
it's
Bicycle
awesome.
Guild, but it was April 13th. I think they're doing which is always fun, a
Mm-hmm.
bike movie premiere. So that money, I think, is going
Is
to
it like Friday Fails, or do you think it's different than that?
I think
No,
the
I think
movie.
Bike Friday Fails, you ever
No,
watch
I
those?
think they're getting
on
yeah,
Instagram. Yeah, no, this is
like an actual movie that they're
Yeah.
bringing in that you have to, like legit,
Sweet.
But I think, like, to answer your question more realistic, like, our 2 miles, which is like 55, something around 55 grand,
Wow.
And I think 2 miles could, I mean, it would be cooler to obviously get that 2.5, but I think realistic with 2 miles, we can at least get the ascent,
Right.
that
yeah.
because
Make
that
it
was
rideable.
1.
Well, we walked yesterday.
Was that
right?
1.7?
This weekend, yeah, it was
1.7?
it was less than 2 for sure.
So-
Did you pick up at that saddle where everybody always goes right,
Mhm.
and then you just go from there and get it?
Mhm.
Man, that's just gnarly territory.
And it takes you into some of the beautiful,
Yes.
just the terrain and the views and the vistas. Like,
Really?
it's gonna.
It's cool. It'll be
Because right now it just stays on the south side, but you're going to wrap it around.
yeah,
to the
which would be nice
northwest.
in the summer too. It's brutally hot. You'll
Oh,
be back in the
gosh.
shade
Yeah,
back there, and
the
it's
surface
really
of the sun
it's really
out there.
treed and steep. It's going to be a difficult build, but I think it's going to be
Yeah.
awesome. It'll be cool when it's done.
And it gets us out far enough that there's the 1-day proposal could happen from the John G. Mine trailheads, the Norris, so that, if we got the map in front of
Right.
us, just when you're,
All those would
Yeah, it
connect
gets
back
you-
up into that.
Well,
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we have some of these printed things at Ales. Like we're going to have the new art one, but we should
Mhm.
also just have the whatever that is that you guys are working from. Just I'll try to remember to just print one of those giant ones because
God.
people love that stuff at Ales because it's tangible, and that's where we're
Mhm.
excited from an Ales standpoint. Is for the last several years the situation was such that we just kind of had to go underground with it a little bit in terms of what it was funding.
Mhm.
But now we don't have to do that and be able to go like, no, this is like legit. Come to this event, and this might be the only way that we can fund this thing right now.
so far, like,
And
it's looking.
I think
like-
that excites people that when they know they're going to an event and they know exactly what the money's going for, and then at the end of the summer or whenever they can actually see, like, all right, we went to
Right.
this event, raised this much money, and boom,
Totally.
there's something on the
Mhm.
ground for it. Versus,
Mhm.
sometimes you wait years to be able to see what that money went to, or it goes to something that you don't
Totally.
actually, it's not
Right.
tangible, or
Exactly.
not everybody gets to enjoy. So
Right, like last year, you funded a trail that was literally, right, as soon as it was a green light, you two days
Yeah,
on and out in a month, and a
Yeah,
mile and a
2 years.
half, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Sure.
totally.
2 years worth of funding that we'd stacked up. Right? That's
Mhm.
part of that was, and I think that's going to help. Like when people get out and start riding that new trail, like I'm hoping there's just such a strong narrative of this wasn't just an Ales thing. This was like a community thing,
Totally.
and we can keep doing this. And I remember Tim Lynch said to me 10 years ago at the base camp, it was a comment, something to the effect of, and I can't remember what we were talking about, but he was like, this is going to be the future of recreation. It's going to have to be user funded.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. Like that's, I mean, not that we wouldn't all take government money in assisting this, and that's great. But
Totally, but
as you're always saying, like the mountain bike community, what is your thing? If you ride an $8,000 bike and you haven't given any money for trails,
right, totally. Yeah, everybody pays for skiing and everything, and
right?
like we all love it, and it doesn't show up by itself, and it's
Right.
and we can have it. And once again, the scratch gravel shows that we can have it. It's an
Mhm.
approved trail system.
it's
The-
multi-use too. I think that's
Yeah.
a big thing to keep in mind too.
Totally,
It's,
yeah.
there's a lot of people who ride horses. That's probably the only place around Helena that I've actually run into horses out there.
Mhm.
I've randomly run into a few times in South Helena.
Right.
Or the guy who the woman who jogs with the Shetland pony. Have you bumped into her?
No,
that's
There's a
no.
gal who runs with a pump with a.
That's awesome.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's multi-use out there. So I'm hoping all the trailer users will come not only to your guys' event, but even just to donate,
Totally.
directly to that project. Whether it's buying a ticket to Ales or whether it's just giving money.
Yeah. MBG just had one of those, right? Where a guy reached out. Do you know this story? Reached out to Hannah. Was like, I don't drink. I need to know more about ale, or need to more about this scratch gravel project. So she connected him with Eric, And after a phone call with Eric, he wrote Eric, I think it was a $500 check for the trails.
That's
Yes.
rad.
Yes.
Totally.
So I think you get 100 people doing that, you know, that maybe haven't known where to put their money towards or didn't want to put it to whatever donation
Right.
they were doing because they weren't sure where it was going to go. This is pretty awesome because you can be
It's
like, all right,
dollar for dollar.
I want to go here and I can actually see it go in the ground the same year I donate it. It's pretty.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique, I think,
Totally.
to that project
Which is-
being lit.
yeah.
And I'd like to, because I know you won't toot your own horn, but like whoever's listening to this, like Narrate puts it on with volunteers, and you guys just not only take care of all the brewers that come in, you engage with passionate people that care for an awesome event, and then you also serve.
Yeah.
And so it's like
It's fun.
when
It's
it
a
comes
community
to any event or any organization that's given as much money possible back, it's right. Ales for Trails is the like the most dollar for dollar, just because I mean you guys take care of all the labor and you
Yeah.
and so it's yeah.
We have $29,000 worth of sponsorships this year.
That's
So that
awesome.
helps. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the model is we try to sponsor the event and then the ticket sales goes to it. But
Mhm.
I mean, just so we're clear on that, like we don't, in fact, this is a Brian Smith thing, which most people know, one of the founders of the Blackfoot, because he helped us find it. Like Narrate even pays for our staff tickets to that. And like my wife serves there for 14 hours
Mhm.
and we pay for her ticket.
Totally.
But that was Brian's doing. Brian's like, if you create an event where everybody gets free tickets, then eventually you just don't make any money.
Totally.
So I'm so thankful for him that he taught us that. And we've had sometimes some awkward interactions where people are wanting free tickets. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like,
Totally.
I buy my ticket.
Yeah.
So,
Right?
Yeah,
but
we all-
yeah, it's
yeah.
a really fun community wide. And the majority of those sponsors are not people who are connected to Narrate by way of Sunday attendance. So it really is this, I always call it a consortium of community players, which is really fun.
Mhm.
But I love that. So 50 grand, if we get 50 grand, you would have a 2-mile trail to the top of that peak, which would be so fun because
Oh,
that
totally.
would create a giant loop.
Totally, because I love the scratch ground. I don't even climb the peak, but once a year, just because you're like, because you're either going up the switchbacks and then down the like sketchy
Steep
old I don't
Jeep
know,
trail or whatever it
I
was.
don't know
Yeah.
what if that was a skid steer would cut that in.
yeah.
but it's, yeah.
It's steep.
Oh, that
Just I don't know, off the west side. There's like the main route that everybody walks. You know.
yeah.
It looks like an old machine cut that in.
Yeah, that's correct.
Smaller dozer, like
Mine, I'm sure it was a
D9 or
miners,
something.
something.
Yeah, what you're
kinda-
saying about like dirt bikes or something, because that last section's like a 45-degree angle. I mean, I took Hannah up there at the end of last summer because she'd never been down, and about a third of the way up, she's like, "What are we doing here? This is the worst. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like it's end of the year climbing, and even then, it's not climbable."
Mm-hmm.
So okay, how did you? Let's just end on. I'd love to hear your guys' individual story of just how did you get into mountain biking? What was your where does that story start for you?
Yeah, you go ahead. You go first.
So, right, Billings, Montana. I would say, my brother and Chad and Dawn. I mean, those guys, the old crew, like right, and they got into it their junior and senior year, and so like I got into it like my junior and senior year, and they kept me in parts and kept me on makeshift bike, and like it was back in the day when it was late, it was 98 or whatever, and so it was back when everybody was just riding their bikes off of cliffs and stuff, and it was in Billings, so all we did was go up to the rims and find like cliffs to ride off of and then ride around town. But so that's where I started, and then I got my first job at the bike shop because I built the biggest illegal jump in town, and it was a giant wood ladder in the middle of the city park. Like it was like a 13-foot. It was like a 13-foot gap and like 10-foot step down into this sketchy, like gnarly area. And, like to be the first person that hit it, I had to hit it at like dark, and, like blind.
Where was this at?
It It was in Zimmerman Park. Like if you go right at the top, you go right, and like 100 yards, there used to be all that wood stuff over there. Before all that wood stuff, there was nothing out there, and I built this giant jump in my yard, and then like drug it out there, and then just installed it and hit it. And then Nathan Wald, he used to work at the bike shop, and like I needed a job, and he's like, "You've got the biggest jump in town, like you got to work here."
Oh, that's awesome.
And so the bike scene just had always, like it's always helped me. I think I didn't know it at the time, and it's probably taken 20 years to realize that, but it's probably been the most community thing I've ever experienced, where you're just accepted. Like I grew up skateboarding in Billings in the 90s, and that was not accepted and illegal, and like to do anything cool, like you were probably getting a vandalism charge, and so I just kind of, mountain biking was when classes came together, like kind of like skiing, where all classes are equal, and they're all just want to go build trails and ride their bikes and have some beers or something, compared to like it doesn't matter. So it's transcended everything, and so I've stayed mountain biking. Plus, I'm one of those people that needs to exercise or be about something. Otherwise, I don't handle my stuff that good. It's nice that everything's melting off as we're talking, because February was hard, and I don't even have to plow 3 feet of snow every day.
Yeah, mine was similar to that, other than I'm a lot older than you guys, so I didn't start. Man, I must have been mid-20s maybe when I bought my first mountain bike. So it's like in the mid-90s probably. Got a fully rigid bike. Mountain bikes were just coming out. Got an old Diamondback, all rigid bike. And my brother-in-law and I just used to go, I didn't really know a lot of the bike community. I'm right in Helena. We just rode a bunch of stuff we could find, did a lot of the passes, we'd go up and those trails on top of Fletcher and all the different passes, we'd go do those. We rode Refrigerator Canyon, which you're not supposed to do. So, yeah, we just did that, and then did that for probably 3 years, and then Angie and I started having kids, and obviously, anybody that have kids, it kind of takes up your time. So we kind of quit mountain biking, and then... Actually, Mike Dahlbeck's the one that got me back into it, Mike's one of my contractors in my plumbing business, and he's like, "Man, you need to get back into mountain biking." So I bought a Santa Cruz Heckler from the Great Divide, Eric Grove, and got back into it. And I think it was a year or two after that, Keenan, my oldest one, he was like 12, I think.
Okay.
Got him a mountain bike, and then he just took to it like you couldn't believe, which was awesome, because then it just got me back into it. And then again, at that point, really got heavy into the bike community around Helena, which was, like Chase said, it's very accepting community. I think any bike community, you go anywhere, I think it's probably got the same feel to it. They're just very accepting. Keenan started working at the garage with Steve Cohen. And then, Cole and all those guys down there, just got in the bike community. And my wife at that point got a bike again. She had one for maybe a year or two before she got pregnant, and then she didn't ride again until she kind of quit having babies, and then she got back into it, and it's definitely been a lifestyle. I got into the Bicycle Guild. I was part of that for quite a few years. I was the vice president of that, and then kind of bowed out of that once Chase and I started doing trails, just because obviously conflict of interest. It's just been I think a great community. I mean, Helena's got a great bike community, and I would say just trail community in general. I think that's when I was with the Bicycle Guild, I was on a lot of groups that were multi-use groups trying to come together and come up with decisions on different trails, collaborations. Montana High Divide, I was on that as a representative of the Bicycle Guild, and just made me open my eyes to as far as not just bike trails, just multi-use trails. I think we even sometimes people get a misconception that we're Chase and I, or Phat Track is we just built bike trails, and that's like the furthest thing from the truth. Hands down, we've made more money doing probably all abilities trails, handicap trails, than we have any other kind of trail.
Mm-hmm.
For one, they're more expensive to build, but we probably made more money doing that than we have anything
totally.
else.
That's what,
So it's, we get called a bike building company sometimes, and it's like, no, we're just trail builders.
Because you did the 88 trail up.
We did
before.
and
we did 2 in Sealy as well.
We did 2 in Sealy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's
yeah.
awesome.
We've helped some other people put numbers together on some stuff that's going to hopefully be coming up here. Yeah.
Well, I know you guys call it a business, and it is, but it's also very much a community service. So thank you. It's fun to have you in this space and loving it. I can't imagine how much. Yeah, it's just so meaningful that we're not hiring out of town trail companies to come in and do it. Not that there'd be a problem with that, but like you guys are in the trails, you're in the communities, and I know that when you're building trails, you're walking away from jobs where you make a better wage. So thank you. It's a gift to us too.
You said I would say
thanks for doing
probably
this.
For both of us, it's part of giving back to the community.
Sure.
I think that's one of the joys we get out of it, is that not only do we get to ride the stuff and hike the stuff we build, but we also get to have the community and get a lot of good feedback, and hopefully 50 years from now, the stuff we're putting on the ground is still there, and my grandkids will be riding it, and hopefully their grandkids will be riding it. You leave a legacy of hopefully properly built trails that are sustainable and are going to be around for forever, hopefully.
Well, and I think that's kind of one of the things that we are very motivated about, as well as doing things right. We are in the construction industry. We definitely know budgets and how to communicate and keep to it, because it is the most hour for worth job, and so we bring that to Aylesford, or to the Phat track, and then also just how to do things right, not relearn. That's why we go to the conferences. We're trying to surround ourselves with the most knowledge, because I think Chris and I are definitely those kind of people as well, that we overthink everything too. Everything we taught, we got a little bit of that OCD in those areas of how to do things right, and we want it done right because it is our community and we believe in it. So it is just a really passionate pursuit, so.
Yeah, I think, that's why I brought that up earlier. I think you guys have been instrumental in just raising the water level of, you've inspired the community, I think, to have a higher level of modern expertise around how trails should go in, that's its own service. So good job. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about Narrate Church, find us online at narratechurch.org.
You can also look us up on Facebook or Instagram. Thanks for listening.